All right. Hello, hello, hello. Welcome to today's video where I'm going to be talking about what to do if self-discovery leaves you feeling like the more you're going down this path, the more you're trying to learn about yourself, the more you're trying to connect with yourself, you get to a point where you feel like you're trying to connect in with yourself, you feel like you're going inside, you're feeling like you're starting to detach from what the world tells you you're supposed to be and all of these conditioned things that you've been told your whole life you're supposed to be and want and have and all this stuff. And rather than having the flash of insight of who you really are and what you really want and your actual truth and all of these things, instead of that, you find that you just feel hollow. You feel like there's no one inside, you feel like there's nothing there, you feel like you don't have a path you want to follow, you don't actually have any idea who you are, you don't have any idea what you want, and it just feels like when you let go of all the conditioning and you let go of all the expectations and you tell yourself, if I really loved myself and if I was totally safe, whatever, what would I do? And the answer is just nothing. Like I don't want to do anything. I don't feel like anyone. I don't feel like anything. I don't feel like there's anything inside of me that's authentic to me. It just feels like everything that I would ever do is because I have to do it or because I've been told to do it. And you may even feel like I'm fine with letting all that stuff go, but there just isn't a like me inside. Okay? So that can be the first thing. That feeling of that there just isn't a you in there. That there isn't a real authentic self in there. Or the feeling of if you love yourself safe and you tell yourself you're good enough and you tell yourself you're worthy and you tell yourself you don't have to be anything or do anything to get approval and all of this stuff, and you validate yourself completely and you think, okay, now what am I excited about? What do I want to do? What do I want to be? And the answer is nothing. Like you're just exhausted. You just want to quit everything. You hate everything. You just feel like, again, like if you had your way, if you're allowed to just, if you don't have to do anything, then you don't want to do anything. Okay, so that's the first part. We're going to be talking about what to do if your self-love path is leading you to feeling hollow or leading you to realizing that you're just completely exhausted and you have no passion or interest or drive for anything other than just like laying in bed or just like wishing you could give up on everything because the only things you can think of are hard. Okay, and the other half is if you are coming to this point on your path where you start to realize, where you're starting to realize that society sucks, that your coping, your self-sabotage, your scapegoats, all of these things, your addictions, your bad habits, whatever, all the things you think are wrong with you. When you finally get to this place of like really doing this work so that you're loving these parts of yourself safe, loving these parts of yourself, and you realize you're doing all of these things and you have all of these things in response to a world that hurts. You're realizing that it's the fact that you have to go to the job that you do every single day that you have to cope, and the relationships that you have, and the way of life you've been told this is the way it has to be, this is how life has to be, and you're feeling like, yeah, I hate everything and everything is hard and I'm coping and I'm numbing and I'm self-sabotaging and I'm doing all these things to myself because, right? And you finally make that connection that it's not because you're broken and it's not because you're shitty and it's not because you're not trying hard enough. It's because you're in pain. And then you look out and you say, but all the things I have to do to survive, all the things I have to do to survive in the system are things I don't want to do that cause me pain, that make me feel terrible, that make me have to cope and self-sabotage and scapegoat, right? Because I don't really actually want to do what it looks like I have to do to survive in this system. I am not happy doing the things that everyone else is doing, but I don't know what else to do, right? And we can get to that like hopeless, oh my God feeling of, yeah, like when you really love the parts of yourself that you think are wrong safe, you're going to get to this place where all the things you thought were wrong with you, you're going to realize aren't, They are just a reaction, a response to the pain that you're in from society. And then that can make us feel completely overwhelmed and completely afraid, because we can be like, well, then what am I supposed to do? Because everything I have to do to survive, everything I have to do to fit in, everything I have to do to get my needs met hurts and is killing me. So what am I supposed to do? Okay, so now, just to back up for a sec. This video is not gonna be for everyone, okay? I do try to make my videos as broad reaching as possible, right? I try to start with just like that, just connect with yourself, just love yourself, validate yourself, without trying to offer too much like this is where this is gonna go, or this is what you're probably gonna come to if you do this, or I'm trying not to suggest too much. But in this video specifically, I am going to be going a little bit farther than I usually do. So I want you to first know that this video isn't for everyone. So if you are listening to this and it makes you feel uncomfortable and it makes you feel overwhelmed and it makes you feel scared and it doesn't feel like freedom, it feels like, oh my gosh, like if it tenses your body up and if it makes you feel like, listen to yourself. Okay, turn me off. Don't listen to me. Go watch other videos that make you feel better. Anything like that. But listen to yourself, okay? Because there is no, I don't personally believe there's any benefit to forcing yourself to listen to something that feels terrible, okay? So listen to yourself. Okay, if this video doesn't make you feel good, if this doesn't feel like freedom, if this doesn't feel like I'm talking to something that you're like, oh my God, I'm so grateful someone is saying this, I'm so grateful someone is speaking to my experience, I'm so grateful she's making what I'm going through make sense, and all, like, if it doesn't feel like that, turn it off, walk away, you don't need to listen to it, okay? Second thing, I'm going to be talking a lot about my experience. And my experience is not the same as everyone's experience. My experience is not universal. My experience doesn't apply to everybody. And I'm not here to say that everybody can get to where I am, or that everyone can do what I did, or that everyone should do what I did, or should do what I'm doing. I am just following my path. And of course, I'm happy to share with you the things that have been working for me. But I don't do that from a place of like, I am a guru and you should follow me and I'm always right and I have some access to truth that other people don't have, or anything like this. Like, I don't believe that I'm infallible. I don't believe that I'm perfect. I don't believe that I'm not making mistakes currently. I know that I see reality incorrectly all the time. So like, I'm sharing my experience because I know that we're more similar than we are different. But I'm not sharing my experience from the point of like, what I did is correct and everyone should do what I did, because that is not true and I really don't believe that. And that's part of why I don't talk a whole lot about my experience personally, because I don't necessarily think that it's relevant, the specific things that I did, right? Like, I like to talk about broad concepts. I like to talk about broad general ideas. I don't like to say, and then like, get rid of all your clothes and then take this specific action step and then do this specific thing, because where we all are and where we are all at in society and where we're all at in our consciousness and where we're all at in our bodies and what we need and all these things, we are so unique that if we get too caught up in like, okay, well, like, she has something that I want, so I should do exactly what she did, my belief is that it's not the specific things, it's the fact that I followed my path that I got to where I am. It's the fact that like, the tools that I'm offering of you connecting in with yourself and feeling what feels right for you to do from your current place, like, that is the tool that I used. But what that looks like on me is going to look very different on everyone else. What it looks like to follow through with I'm listening to my internal guidance is going to look different on all of us. So the tool of follow what, like, right, connecting in with yourself, having compassion for yourself, really learning how to discern the difference between consensus reality and real reality, pain and pleasure, all that stuff. Like, those are the tools. Those are the things that apply to all of us. But the specific things that we do from that place are going to look different on all of us. Okay? So that's my caveat before we listen to this video. Don't listen to anything you don't like. Don't push yourself. Don't ever, ever, ever abdicate your body for someone else's words, even mine, especially mine, ever mine. You are the authority on your life. Your body knows you better than I do. I'm speaking to a specific group of people. This is going to really resonate with some people, and it's going to feel kooky dukes to other people. And if it feels kooky dukes to you, and if it feels not right to you, and if it feels like this isn't reality to you, trust yourself, listen to yourself, turn me off, okay? So I just want to say that before we even get started, that I am not here to claim any ultimate authority. I'm not here to say that I am some guru who, if you listen to me, you'll get all the results that I'm getting or whatever. And that's the other thing too, is like, I'm trying to share from the place of, these are the things that I've been doing for like 15 years, right? Like, I'm not sharing with you things that I started doing a couple of years ago or a couple of months ago, because I don't know if those things work, right? These tools that I'm talking about and the things that I share are the things that I've been doing for like almost 2 decades. And that's how I know they work. They have objectively made my life less painful all the time. Right? Like, I don't have the highs and the lows and the dips that I used to have. I don't have the pain I used to have. I can objectively say my life is better. And so that's why I share that stuff. Because it stood the test of time. And that's where I'm coming from. Okay? So that's that. Okay. So when we're on this self-love path, like I said, in the beginning, where everyone starts, is we think there's something wrong with us. We think we're broken. We think our self-sabotage and our scapegoats and our coping and our addictions and our numbing and all the things that we do in our relationships and how we sabotage our work and why we can't find our purpose and we can't find our money and all of these things. We think these are the things that are wrong with us and we have to improve these things about ourselves. That's where most of us are coming. That's why we're all coming to self-love and we're all coming to spirituality. We're trying to fix these broken things about ourselves. And then as we get deeper and deeper and deeper on this path, we start to recognize that, no, we've been like totally indoctrinated and programmed and wired to believe a bunch of things about ourselves and about reality that aren't true, right? We start to get a glimpse as we love ourselves and as we stop shaming ourselves and as we stop blaming ourselves and as we stop allowing the world to gaslight us into believing that the systems of productivity and consumption and relationships and food and all of this stuff that we have out there is totally correct. And we are just failing if we can't do it right. Or that everything in society is wrong and we have to, like, I don't know, like shave our heads and all move to Asia and never watch TV again or whatever we think the extreme opposite is. We start to recognize, like, okay, that's not reality. Yeah, that, like, there are things about ourselves that we have been trained from childhood that we have to be. And there are things about ourselves that we've been trained from childhood that we are not allowed to be. And we start to slowly reconnect as we have compassion and curiosity for our coping mechanisms, for our scapegoats, for our self-sabotage, all of these things. We slowly start to reconnect with these really wounded inner child parts. That's what's going to come up, right? We're all going to reconnect with these parts of ourselves that are immature and that are doing the best they can to get our needs met in the systems that we grew up in, with the nervous systems that we were programmed, right? We start to recognize that, like, we are deathly afraid to not be and do the things we've been programmed to be. Because in our nervous systems, it feels like if we get rejected, it feels like if we get abandoned, it feels like if we get shamed for who we are, we're going to die. And we start to realize that's a childhood trauma, that when we were fully and completely dependent upon our caregivers for everything, Every time we got shamed, every time we got blamed, every time we got abandoned, every time we got told this is how we have to be, this is what we have to do, this is the right way. We were being programmed in our nervous systems that that's how we survive. And if we don't do those things, if we don't align with that expectation, if we do become the thing we're not supposed to be, if we get abandoned, if we get rejected, these parts of us that wanted to grow, that wanted to express, that wanted to whatever, got shut down, got abandoned, got rejected, got shut, right? In our nervous system, at the time, at being a child, that equaled death. So moving forward, we learned that provision and getting our needs met comes from the outside. And it comes from being approved of by the gatekeepers of the things that we want or that we need. We never learned how to meet our own needs. We never learned what our own needs even are a lot of the time. We learned that when I'm in pain, I cry out, mom and dad figure out what's wrong with me and solve it. And if they don't, all I have control over is my own behavior. So I'm going to now figure out some different way of behaving to try and elicit a different response from the people around me. Instead of learning, I'm in pain, I'm hungry, I need food, how do I get food, which is a one-to-one relationship with reality, we learned I'm in pain, I cry out, mom pats me on the back, that doesn't make me feel better, I cry in a different way, she realizes I'm hungry, she gives me the boob. It was the crying out in the different way that made the pain go away. So now we learn, when I feel this pain, I cry in this way. And then it makes mom feed me. You see? So in a roundabout way, I get my need met, but I get my need met through altering my behavior so that the gatekeeper of the thing that I need gives it to me. And we grow into adulthood still behaving like that, where we have pain, we have needs, we have desires, we have all these things, and we aren't taught how to actually figure out what the need is and how to get that need met in reality. Like, pain equals hunger equals food. How do I get food? We're taught in our very early childhood, pain equals react in some way so that someone outside of me will figure it out and then give me the thing that I want. And then we start to live from this place forever of believing and feeling like everything that we need and everything that we want, our pain and our pleasure, are gatekept by all the people around us, right? They're gatekept by our friends, they're gatekept by our teachers, they're gatekept by our employers, they're gatekept by society at large. And so we all feel this really deep sense of like, if I'm not understood, if I'm not liked, if I'm not loved, I'm gonna die, because that's how I get my needs met. If I get rejected, I'm going to die, because we don't really know how to figure out what we need and how to get those needs met. And then there are certain things that we do rely upon other people to get our needs met, right? Like, none of us are independent. None of us are ever going to be fully and completely self-sufficient. But we want to learn how to become more capable of identifying our own needs and saying, right, and communicating that with people and having more of a consent-based relationship with one another. And like, if I do this, I would like this from you. Do you consent to that? All of these things. Like, when we practice like nonviolent communication, or we're working on our intimate relationships and better, a whole huge part of it is learning how we have all of these assumed needs and assumed, if I do this, you're supposed to respond in this way. And we never communicated that, and it comes from our childhood, and we have all these conflicts because there's all this assumed stuff that no one's saying because we're not even really aware of it. And we have all these conflicts because their childhood was different than your childhood, and their thing that they usually do to get love doesn't totally match what you usually do to get love, and they don't know how to meet your need, and we're all trying to read each other or expecting to be read and all of this stuff. And it's like, yeah, we got to learn that. So like I say, eventually on the self-love path, we're going to come to these things, these realizations, these revelations, that a lot of what we are and a lot of what we're doing that hurt, all these things we're trying to do, all these things we're trying to make ourselves become, all of these things where we feel like we're not good enough, and we feel like we're not enough, and we feel like it's never enough, and we feel like we can't figure it out, and we have success for a little bit, and then we crash, and we can't figure out why we always crash, or we can't figure out why we can never get motivated to do a thing, or we can't figure, whatever. We're going to come to, oh, it's because it's not actually authentic to me. That was what I was trained in my childhood that I had to do. That's what I was trained in my childhood I had to be. And it's not just an intellectual, like, oh, my caregivers wanted me to be a thing and they're wrong about me, so I'm just going to go and do a different thing and that's fine, right? Like, we have to understand that this, again, is super deep in our nervous systems. Like, realizing you're not who you were conditioned to be is going to be horrifying. Okay, I really want to make that clear. Like, when we're really figuring this stuff out, when we're coming to the understanding of like, whoa, I'm never going to be like, that is not for me, or this is a thing that I've been trying to get rid of about myself for my entire life, and it's just who I am. It's actually like a real part of me. It's not going to be like, oh, great, I discovered myself and everything's amazing, and now I'm just going to go and do that. We're going to be like, no, like most of the time. Sometimes we might feel like liberated, like, oh my God, I'm so grateful that I can be this thing and I'm just going to go and do that. Like sometimes. But a lot of the time, it's going to be, holy shit, right? Like, if I'm not this, I have no idea what else to be. I literally have no idea what else to be. Like, I have no clue who I actually am, because I had put all of my eggs in this basket of trying to be this thing that now, if I'm going to admit to myself I'm not, I have no idea what I am, right? Or we're going to see what we really are, and there's going to be so much neural connection that being that is bad, is wrong, is shameful. Like, we're going to have all these stories of like, if I accept this part of myself, I'm going to be rejected by everybody, I'm never going to get a job, I'm going to be homeless on the street, I'm going to be single forever, I'm never going to have any friends, I'll never make it in the world, whatever it is. There's going to be those moments of just like, if this is who I really am, then it's hopeless. Because it's so programmed into our beings that the caregivers, because this is the other thing too, right? We have to understand that the way that our brains work and the way that our neurochemistry works is the things that our caregivers programmed into us as being the right and the wrong way to be, the good and the bad, all of these things, aren't what everyone believes. It's not what the entire world thinks is true. You're going to be eventually able to find people who have completely opposite views to your caregivers and to the culture you were raised in and to all of these things. But to you, it's going to feel like no one could ever love this person. To you, it's going to feel like no one could ever love who you really are, no one could ever accept who you really are, and that everyone expects you to be the thing. Because as we're growing up, because of the codependent way we learn to get our needs met with our caregivers, right? We're not actually learning how to meet our own needs. We're learning how to behave in certain ways to elicit certain responses from our caregivers, and that is how we get our needs met, in covert and shadowed and often incomplete ways, but it's the best we know. We are then only going to be attracted to people who are like that, who also respond in similar ways to our caregivers in our neediness, in our ways that we react or whatever. So it's going to feel a lot like everyone believes this and everyone expects this of me, and this is how we all operate, because the people who don't respond to you the way that your caregivers responded to you, when you cry out in a certain way, when you do a certain action, when you want to get your need met and you only know how to get it met through this kind of behavioral feedback loop, when people around you don't respond how you expect them to respond, you're not going to be attracted to those people. Okay, so this is why we kind of tend to sort of build these echo chambers for ourselves unconsciously of all the people around us, like the fake version of us. All the people around us also expect us to be this certain way. All the people around us reject us exactly the same way that our caregivers did, because that's our comfort zone. That's our zone of familiarity. That's the only way we know how to get our needs met right now. When people behave differently towards us than our caregivers, even if it's better, even if it feels better, even if it's more honest, even if it's more compassionate, even if it's more whatever, we're going to kind of get bored with it or be resistant to it or not attracted to it because it's not going to make sense to our programming. So that's, again, why when we start to recognize our real selves, who we really are, what we really want, all these things, it's like gonna not compute in a lot of ways, because it's gonna feel like everyone that we know, everyone we've ever been exposed to, also believes these things, also feels this way. If I am not this way, I'm going to get rejected by everyone, because literally everyone I know believes this. Literally everyone I know acts in this way. And the people who don't, I don't like them, or I find them uncomfortable, or I don't really care about their opinion, or they're just not even in my zone. Okay? So this hollow feeling is totally normal. And then the second thing is that when we start to validate ourselves and give ourselves permission to let go of the things that we're not, and give ourselves permission to say, okay, this isn't really who I am, this isn't really what I want, these aren't the things that, there's going to naturally be a period where we're letting go of stuff before we see anything. Okay? So part 2 of this, if when you're doing your self-love work, it just feels like there's nothing in there, you're not getting insights into who you are, you're not getting insights into what you want, you're learning a lot about the things that you aren't, you're learning a lot about the things that you don't want. You're learning a lot about the things that don't resonate for you, but you're not feeling like you're really getting what you are and what you want and where you're going and a vision and a passion and all of these things that everyone tells you you're supposed to have in the awakening experience. That is also totally normal. Okay, my mom used to give this metaphor of you have to clean out your closet before you buy new clothes, to make room. And I think that this is really true when we're on our self-love path, is that there is going to be a phase where we're just getting rid of stuff and we're not replacing it with anything yet. Where we're getting rid, we're shedding, we're releasing, we're saying that's not me and that's not me and I don't value that and I don't like that, and we're letting go of all this stuff and we're not replacing it with anything in the moment. And I just want to say that that is normal and that is necessary. So if you're feeling that like I'm just no one, I'm just nothing, I'm just, I don't know, but it doesn't really feel scary and it doesn't feel wrong and it doesn't feel panic, it doesn't feel any of these things, like you're just like, oh, maybe I'm just not anything. Go with that. Okay? Let yourself go through that phase of just letting go and there not being anything to replace it. Because it's just a phase. It is just a phase, and it will pass, because nature abhors a vacuum. It's going to fill itself in with what you really are, because you're here with a structure, right? No one is actually nothing. And if you were, you wouldn't exist, right? Like an acorn seed is always going to become an acorn tree. Nothing in life that's still alive doesn't have the capacity to grow into something else. If it doesn't have the capacity to grow, it dies. So as long as you're still alive, as long as you're still here, with all of your complexity, there is a lot of potential for you. Okay, that is going to be the reality you're going to realize. But maybe not right now, maybe not today. Okay? Really let yourself go through that period of just, I don't know, there's nothing there. I just feel empty and hollow and nothing, and I'm just shedding and I'm not replacing it with anything. Let yourself go through that phase, okay? That is a completely normal phase. That is a completely necessary phase. Sometimes we have to clean out the closet before we buy the new clothes, all right? So that's that. And then the third part of this is the exhaustion, okay? I have seen this more than I think I've seen anything else. People get to a certain point on their self-love path where they're really validating themselves, they're really honoring themselves, they're really starting to say, okay, my coping, my self-sabotage, my numbing, all of these things, none of these things are what's wrong with me, none of these things are what's bad about me, this is just how I'm coping with life. I'm trying to be here for myself, I'm having compassion for myself, I'm starting to ask myself, what do I need and what do I want and all these things. And the answer we're getting is, I am so tired. I am so exhausted. I have nothing left to give. Even if I were to discover this great thing that I want to be, I don't even think that I would want to do it because it just feels like everything is so hard right now. Everything is exhausting. Everything is making me feel exhausted. I can't imagine even wanting to get out of bed. That is normal. There is nothing wrong with you. You're not doing anything wrong. You're not hopeless. Again, you're not actually going to be stuck here forever. This is a very real, true, you've been running on fumes for a long, long time, revelation. And it scares the shit out of all of us. Okay? When I went through that phase, I don't think I've ever been more scared in my life. Okay? My sister's here. She can vouch for me. We were all freaked out. When I hit the wall, when I hit the like, okay, I literally can't keep going trying to be who I am, and I don't know what I want to be instead. We were in Bali. It was 3 years ago. I literally like laid in bed and just like cried. Like it was so hardcore. And it was scary. And I thought I was never going to get out of it. I thought I was going to be dead and exhausted forever. I thought I would never have energy for anything ever again. I literally felt like my world was crumbling around me. Like it was so scary. And I had no idea what was going on because I had never seen a video of anyone telling me that this was a normal part of the path. But yeah, like I got to this point where I was just like so sad and really finally like feeling the trauma of everything that I had been through, and all the rejection and all the ways I had tried so hard to fix myself and tried so hard and blamed myself and shamed myself and made everything my fault. And then all of a sudden I started to see that like, no, I was kind of abused and the people around me were sort of shitty and it actually wasn't all my fault and I didn't need to hate myself, right? Because that was my coping mechanism. And it's the coping mechanism that most of us do, is whenever I was rejected or shamed or abandoned or treated poorly, I rejected myself as a coping mechanism. I tried to make it my fault. I tried to make it how it was me doing something wrong, because the alternative of these people are just treating me shitty and I don't know how to set a boundary, or I don't know how to protect myself, or I don't know how to get my needs met without them. I couldn't realize that they were being shitty and abusing me and all of these things. I had to hate myself to give myself a feeling of like, if this is my fault, I can fix myself and then I will change my behavior and then they'll treat me better. So what did I do wrong? How did I cause this, right? And then when I finally got to my self-love path, I was like, oh no, I'm just like in pain and exhausted because I've been treated really bad for my whole life and made it all my fault instead of realizing that it wasn't my fault and people were treating me bad and I'm actually really hurt. So it was kind of like waking up and realizing I was like in a full, like all of my bones were broken. And I had been trying to run a marathon every day. And I finally realized, like when people go into that kind of like altered state, like when a mom like lifts a car up to like save her baby that's underneath, and you like just develop this like superhuman strength and it like overrides everything, and then like 3 hours later you realize, oh my god, like I really hurt myself doing that, and then all of your body hurts. That's what it felt like. So that, and understanding like just how much I had been suppressing myself, and even like years into my self-love path where I had been embracing myself and I had been going for it and I'd been changing and I'd been doing all this stuff, like this was like years down the road for me. of like finally just being like, okay, like how deep it was. And it like hit me all at once. And like I said, I was just completely blindsided by it. I was totally exhausted. And so I just want to say that that is normal. Okay? You're going to experience that probably. And it's going to feel like there's no hope. It's going to feel like you're never going to have energy again. It's going to feel like you're never going to care about anything again. It's going to feel like there's just all this pain coming up and all this trauma and all this stuff from your past and all of these things, and you have to process it and you don't really know how to process it, and you're trying really hard and you're doing your self-love work and it's kind of not working. And in that, I would say, if you can, get a therapist, someone to talk to. If you can't, journal. Like really do these journaling work, do all the stuff that I offer for the self-love. Like I don't think that there's a wrong way to do it. Do the things that work for you, and also just know that probably for a while nothing is going to make you feel better. Okay, that's normal. When we're processing this stuff and we're just feeling all of our emotions and we're feeling our exhaustion and we're going through everything that we're going through, it's going to feel like nothing even makes it feel better. Like there are just going to be days that are shitty and hard and everything hurts and you're, like I said, you're exhausted and it just feels like there's no hope and it's dark. Just have compassion for yourself. Literally, if that's the only thing you can do for the day, is like, even if you're like in the like, no, I have to hate myself to try to get myself out of this, just have compassion for the fact that you're trying to hate yourself to give yourself power. Just have compassion that you're trying to blame yourself to give yourself power. Just keep returning to the compassion piece over and over and over again, and you will get through it. Keep using these tools of compassion and curiosity and what do I need and what am I going through and how can I express this and how do I, right? Like all of the tools in the mystery school, all of the tools in my YouTube videos, all of the tools, you have a lot of tools. And it's not that there's like one thing you're going to do. It's not, I can't give you a timeline for how long it's going to take. I can't tell you what it's going to look like for you. All I can say is if this is what you're experiencing, it is normal and you will get through it. Just use all your tools. You can't do it wrong. Okay? Trust yourself. If you're letting the process happen, I really believe it will happen. I believe that it will pull you. Just keep going with it. Okay? So, and we have to just understand that it takes so much energy to suppress ourselves. It takes so much energy to hate ourselves. It takes so much energy to try to become a thing we're never going to be. And it takes so much energy to try to not be the thing that we are, that we're all going to eventually hit this wall of exhaustion. Okay? Because it's so hard. And then I just want to say too that on the other side, which is not like a thing, it's not a moment, it's like a slow transition and then one day you look back and you'll realize you're on the other side kind of thing. It is so much easier to be your real self. The amount of energy and effort that you're putting in to try to become what you think you're supposed to become, if it's really that hard, that is so much harder than it's ever going to be your real self. The hard part about being your real self is loving your nervous system safe enough to be rejected and go for it anyways. Loving your nervous system safe enough to start to recognize what your needs are and how to get them met in more conscious ways. Loving yourself safe enough to embrace what you really want and what you really are and what you really care about, and letting go of the other things and the fear that comes up with that. Like, that's the hard part about being yourself. But that is easier and takes less energy, because that stuff, even though it's hard and scary and traumatic, it feeds you. Okay? The suppression, the like working so hard to not be yourself and working so hard to be who you're not supposed to be, you get consensus reality hit. But I feel like that's like 2 bars of energy, but it costs 5 bars of energy. Whereas being your real self costs 5 bars of energy, but gives you 10. Like, that's what it really is. The suppression costs 5, and then the benefit of the consensus reality gives you back 2. So you're always in the negative. Okay? Being your real self costs 5. Like, it's a much bigger initial investment. It feels a lot scarier in the beginning. It feels a lot harder in the beginning, but you get 10 bars every time you do it. The payback of being your real self and honoring your true growth path, even if you fail, even if you take a step and it doesn't work how you think it's going to work, even if you go through something hard and painful, it still gives you something that consensus reality can never give you. So that's the thing, all right? I promise you that slowly, 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 you're going to get little bits of energy to be your real self. You're going to love yourself safe enough during that chaotic exhaustion time that things are going to start to heal and integrate, and you're going to start to have ideas of who you are and what you want and what is real for you. And you're going to start to pursue them, and it's going to be hard and scary. It's going to be 5 bars, but you're going to start to get back those 10 bars, and every little time you do it, you get more and more empowered, and this has been my experience, that eventually you get so much stronger on your path, and so much more self-aware, and so much more autonomous within the society and all this stuff. So this is going to lead into the second piece, that you will look back like I do, right? Like, I look back on that experience of the exhaustion, and I don't even recognize that girl. I don't even recognize that life. I remember what it was like, but I've never been back down there again. And yeah, it's a completely different experience over here. And I have so much more energy than I ever did trying to fit in. So right, I went through a lot of the horrifying having to accept who I really am, having to do the things that are really real for me. The next part that I'm going to talk about, which is really, really scary and was a lot of risk taking and a lot of making mistakes and having no idea what was going to happen and kind of going it on my own. But like I said, all of that made me stronger. I actually got stronger and more resilient and more energy and more healthy on every level through that. Okay? So even though it was effort, and even though it was a lot, and even though it was hard, it was feeding me. Okay? So now this next part. Again, if this doesn't resonate with you, turn it off. If this doesn't feel good for you, turn it off. If I sound kooky dukes to you, turn it off. Okay? Trust yourself. Listen to yourself. I am not the ultimate authority on anything. I'm just speaking from my experience and from a lot of the questions that I get. And this is not beginner stuff, okay? And it might not even apply to everyone at all times. Okay? This is going to apply to some people. So if this feels like freedom for you, listen. If it doesn't, write it off. Okay. So the next question that I get asked a lot is, what if you're on your self-love path and you're on your self-love journey and you're realizing that all your scapegoats and your self-sabotage and your coping and the numbing and the pain that you feel is because everything you have to do to survive in the system hurts. You start to really get okay, it's not me. I'm not broken. I'm not shitty. I'm not doing something wrong. I'm coping and I'm self-sabotaging and I'm numbing and I'm doing all these things because society hurts. Because trying to be normal and trying to fit in and trying to be what I'm supposed to be feels so bad, feels so painful. And it looks like this is what I have to do to survive, and I can't do it. I can't do it. So what do? Okay. This is where I think the self-love path leads us. A lot of people think the self-love path is going to lead you to, I just loved myself enough that I got rid of all my self-sabotage and all my coping and all my scapegoats and all my numbing, and now I can be that person that I've been trying to be my whole life, just without all the shitty parts of me. right? I can work the job, I can have the relationship, I have the perfect diet, I have the body, I've manifested all the things, and I just don't have those shitty parts of me anymore. The reality is, most of us are going to go, yeah, no. The shitty parts of me that are coping and numbing and self-sabotaging, that are scapegoating, that are addicted, aren't shitty parts of me. Those are more authentic to me than the thing I'm trying to become to fit into society. These are the real parts of me. These aren't my bad, broken parts. These are the parts of me that are saying, I can't do that. I'm never going to be that. That is harmful. That hurts. That is out of alignment with life. And we're gonna start to recognize and realize, like, this is what I realized, like, literally as an 18-year-old. I looked around and I was like, okay, our culture is racist. Our culture is sexist. Our culture is ableist. Our culture is telling us that the only way to be a good human being is to be constantly producing something. My culture is telling me that I need to be a savior. My culture is telling me that these are the normal ways to eat. This is what health is. This is what a relationship is supposed to look like. This is what success is supposed to look like. All of this stuff. And I looked around and I was like, this is shit. Like, this is terrible. This is, I was like, I can't do this. Like, I can't ethically do this, right? I started to be like, everything that I'm doing is causing harm on some level, right? Like, even, I remember sitting in school and not being able to pay attention in history. Because I just felt like, this is alive. Like, my sister, she's the perfect example of this. She was sitting in school as a young child, literally being like, this is bullshit. Like, I don't want to learn this. I don't want to be here. And she wasn't, like, she's like a genius. She's like incredibly intelligent. It was not that she's like underachieving in some way. Not that that's bad, because I don't believe that our current education system measure intelligence in any real way anyways. But even according to normal standards, she's incredibly intelligent. And she was just like, fuck this. And I literally cried myself to sleep every night for my entire childhood, just feeling like the world was crashing down around me. And I didn't really have like as much, obviously, awareness that I do now of like, yeah, like industry is destroying the planet. And there are systems in place that make it impossible for some people to ever work their way into a place where they will have enough. And it literally is set up so that some people who are at the top exploit and exploit and exploit everyone below them. And we've been convinced in our culture that work is a virtue, that consumption and production tell us something about who we are as human beings. And that's indoctrination, because that indoctrination keeps us overproducing, over-consuming, never understanding what we actually want and what we actually need and what would actually satisfy us. So that the people at the top continue to get richer and richer and richer and richer off of everyone else continuing to overbuy and overproduce and overextend themselves, right? So that the people at the bottom have to keep, literally can't get out of their situation. They could not work hard enough. They just don't have access. And it's set up that way on purpose, because the people at the top need to have these people to exploit on the bottom. And the people in the middle support it. And so the point is, if you're starting to realize that it's not you, it's culture, you're right. I had the same revelation. And if you're starting to realize everything I have to do to get my needs met, I don't want to do, and it hurts, you're right. There's nothing wrong with you. The way our society is set up, how we get our needs met, is harmful. We literally necessitate, like the system necessitates that we are harmful. Just buying food, just driving our car, right? Like when you really start to get how society was set up, you're gonna start to just see that, like, okay, it doesn't work. It's not gonna work. Self-love isn't about getting to a place where you can just be happy in the system, because the system is flawed. The system is anti-life. The system is anti-life. And that is the bottom line of it. So if you're coming to that revelation, there's nothing wrong with you. You're absolutely correct. In my experience, yes. I came to this and then was basically, I said 18, but like I feel like by the time I was 14, like grade 8, I was on the couch. I was so exhausted. So I guess I've had like 2 of these like real exhaustion moments of just like, this isn't going to work. I can't do this. And so then I remember when we first moved out, and like I said, we were living in Vancouver, and it's a pretty ritzy city in Canada, and just the wealth gap there. Like literally going from walking through neighborhoods of $1 million homes to one street over, everyone is homeless. And just thinking like, how is this possible? How is this a thing? Why is this reality? Like if we have so much wealth, why do we have homeless people? Why do we have people who don't have enough food? And why do we have people who can't get their needs met? And then I remember, so it was just these constant revelations that I was never going to be able to make it work in the system. I was never going to be able to do it. And what I want to say about that is, if that is where you are getting, if that is where you are arriving, I believe that if that is truly true for you, there is a way for you out of the system. It's not that you're broken. It's not that you're supposed to try to make the system work. There's going to be a path for you that's specific to you. That may take a really long time, where you will slowly take steps to disengage from culture. And you're going to find that there are alternative ways of living. And the biggest thing that I want to say is that when you get to that place where you're like, culture hurts, I have to get out, and then you can't conceptualize how to get out, or even you can think like, okay, so I have to get like off grid, or I have to quit my job and be totally self-sufficient and all this, and then that's all super overwhelming and like, oh my God, I'm not going to feel better until I'm totally, no. The reality is, you're going to take little steps in the direction of nourishing yourself. And every step you take is going to make you feel better. Okay? That has been my experience. I have been working to get out of the system, and I'm not fully out, right? I would never claim that I'm like self-sufficient in any way. I'm just way more out than I used to be. And every step I took made me feel better than where I was before, gave me power. So that's what I was talking about, right? Every time I followed, okay, I'm going to reject culture. I'm going to reject the thing that I'm supposed to be. I'm going to follow the thing that I know, even if it went poorly, even if it didn't go the way that I thought it was going to go, even if it failed, and I had to learn something from that. I got stronger. I got more aware. I got more empowered. And I was able to change my life little by little by little. And like I said, so like right now, you couldn't pay me to go back to where I was 5 years ago. But 5 years ago was the best I had ever felt. And you couldn't have paid me to go back to where I had been 2 years before that. But 2 years before that, I was like, I am free. This is amazing. This is the best I've ever felt. Okay, so what I'm trying to say is, you're not going to have to get to the finish line before you're going to feel better. You don't have to figure it all out. You're never going to figure it all out. Like where I am today, 14 years later, of starting to realize I wasn't going to be able to make it work in the system, I had no idea that this was even a thing. Like the country I live in right now, I didn't even know this was a country when I first started. Okay? There's no limit to where you can go when you're willing to just take the little small steps in front of you. There is so much potential when you're willing to just take the little small steps that are in front of you. Okay, so like where I started was like I was super depressed, I was super sick, whatever. My body led me to wanting to be a raw foodist. And it was like the most exciting thing that I could think of. And it made me a total freak. I was living in Calgary, Alberta. The main industry there are oil and cows. They don't even know what a vegetarian is in Calgary. And this was like, what, 17 years ago? So being a raw foodist, everyone was like, oh, you mean sushi? Or like, oh, you eat raw meat? Like that was what people thought. Which led me to a book which talked about durian, which told me about Asia. And then I didn't make it to Asia for the first time until 5 years later. And I started writing a blog, like back in 2009. And I wrote and I wrote and I wrote and I wrote, and that just felt important to me, and it was a thing I did on the side until eventually 5 years later, I got my first job online because I had all this experience blogging, right? It was a thing I wanted to do. I had no idea it was going to, but if I hadn't started doing that, I would not have the career I have right now. Like that was the beginning of Perception Trainers. I started a little blog on Facebook in 2007. Right? Like what I'm trying to say is that if you just follow your little things that nourish you, you don't have to figure out how you're going to get out of the system. You don't have to figure out your whole path. You don't have to get all the way there before you'll feel better. When you're really like doing the advanced self-love work, it's really just feeling what feels nourishing in this moment and trusting that and doing that and learning from it. Because again, what feels nourishing in the moment is not always going to be the ultimate right thing. There were a lot of things that I tried that felt nourishing in the moment, that felt right in the moment, that felt like the thing to pursue in the moment, and it totally didn't work out. And it wasn't the right thing. But I learned something from it that helped me find the right thing. So really being open to the mystery of the path. Okay, so like I said, this is why I don't talk about this stuff a lot, because this is like when you're really like anchored in these like I'm gonna trust myself tools. There's not something broken or wrong with me tools. If something hurts, I'm gonna actually question it, and I'm gonna start to actually do the things that I know are authentic to me, and I'm gonna quit the things that I don't want. So like a lot with me, like it started with just, we didn't have cable, we didn't have furniture, I didn't have a car, I didn't buy clothes, right? Like I was working my minimum wage job and I saved $500 a month. I paid $500 a month in rent. I paid $200 a month for food, and then I had like $50 left over. And that was it. I just didn't buy other things. I didn't consume. Like really, I started to like learn how to be a minimalist for a long time. And then, like I said, blogging just felt really important. So it was a thing I did on the side. I put myself through school that felt real for me, but like I didn't go into debt because I didn't go to university because that didn't feel authentic for me. It was really just a lot of like doing what I could in the moment. And it was really hard sometimes, and I got lucky breaks sometimes. I had things that really worked out for me, and the system being set up for me in some ways. Privileges, absolutely, and risks. It wasn't one or the other, it was both, right? I have neurodiversity, which worked against me in some ways and worked really for me in some other ways. And it was all about just working with what I had in the moment and just taking the next step. getting rid of my car, getting rid of these things, getting rid of all of our stuff, moving to Thailand the first time and that totally failing, and then moving back to Canada and then figuring out all these little things. It was so many steps. It was so long. But every time it was just following what felt nourishing at the time, and then being willing to learn from it and being willing to be on my own. I think that's the other big thing. Like really being willing to not be understood, being willing to not be seen, being willing to just look nutty, being willing to make a mistake, being willing to fail, and constantly weighing the like, okay, what's the worst thing that could happen here? And am I willing to face that consequence? Because of course there were times where it was like, okay, if we take this risk and it goes bad, it's not worth it. And there were other times where it's like, if we take this risk and it goes bad, it's worth it. We're going to do it anyways. And sometimes it went bad. Sometimes it really did go the bad way. And then it was like, okay, what are we going to do? So like, that's what I want to say. If you're running into the like, it's culture, I can't do this, you don't have to. But you're not going to figure it all out overnight. You're going to love yourself safe. You're going to keep loving yourself safe. You're probably going to go through the nothingness phase. And then you're going to get to that phase of like, this is all overwhelming, I hate everything. And then I'm just going to say, just one nourishing thing. What's the next most exciting thing you can think of? What's the next most nourishing thing you can think of? And or what's the thing you can give up, you can check out of, and not die? Like it really, you can still survive even if you don't do the thing. Maybe people won't like you, people won't accept you, but you're going to actually still be okay. That would be my advice there. Okay? So this exhaustion is normal. The hollowness is normal. The realizing it's the system that you can't cope with is normal. And you're not going to figure it all out overnight. It's going to be little steps of trusting yourself, taking a step, seeing what happens, learning, trusting yourself, making yourself safe, letting yourself get rejected, seeing that you don't die, learning what your actual needs are, how to get them met in more conscious ways. It's just this over and over and over again. And you get stronger and stronger and stronger and stronger as you do it. Okay? You're not going to wake up and know how to get out and know how to be your true self. That's never going to happen. It's going to be little steps of doing it, and you get a little stronger every time you do it, and a little bit more aware of who you are every time you do it, and a little bit more aware of what you want every time you do it. And then eventually, 10 years later, you're like, whoa, I'm way more myself than I've ever been. I had this whole other life than I ever had, and I don't even know how I got here. It was just like a million little steps. Okay, there is no awakening. There is no I got it. There is no moment. It's a path. It's a path, it's a path, it's a path. And it doesn't mean, okay, this getting out of the system does not look the same for all of us. Some of us are literally going to stay in a big city working a normal job. And our version of being out is going to be, you know, we don't consume, we don't watch TV, we're chill at our job. Like we're doing it because it pays the bills and we like the nature that we get to go to on the weekend, and like that's enough for us. Like the getting out of the system is not anything specific on the outside. It's finding your enough so that you're no longer a cog in the wheel of a system that constantly requires that we more, so that people at the top keep getting more, and the people at the bottom keep getting suppressed. Getting out of the system means you learn how to meet your needs in a more and more sustainable for the culture and for the earth way. And then you stop. You don't keep going when you have enough. Because the systems that exist right now can't keep going if we stop over-consuming and over-producing. If we all find our enough and then stop, there's enough for everybody. This is the bottom line. We don't need to pollute the earth. We don't need to pollute each other. We don't need more than we need. And when we as individuals, figure out what our enough is. And again, that looks different on all of us. It looks totally different on all of us. So for some of us, we still need to shop at Walmart because we just can't afford not to. So it's not your responsibility to go find a local co-op and pay millions of dollars for organic produce. If you can't do that, don't. If you can, do. It's completely based on what is available to you. We are responsible for what we're capable of. That's it. And it will feel good to do what you're capable of. If it feels terrible, it's either beyond your capacity or it's just not something you should be doing right now. Follow what feels nourishing. And if you're really doing that, it's going to be what's best for all of us. Because like I said, getting out of the system is very much checking out of overconsumption and overproduction as much as we can. And that looks different for all of us. And the more of us in the middle who can really reduce our consumption and reduce our productivity, we make it easier for the people who are trapped in having to overproduce and overconsume right now in order to survive. We make it easier for them to get out because we dismantle the people at the top. Okay? Follow your guidance of nourishment and enough. What would be enough for you? What would be enough for you? Follow that. If you really loved yourself, what's enough? And then stop after that. Give away your excess. Right? When we have too much, we can give. We have something to offer. We can, overflow. Give that away. Make it easier for someone else. Okay? So that's that. I hope that was helpful. I hope that resonated. Leave me your questions, comments, concerns down below. And just have compassion for yourself. You didn't make the system. It is absolutely not your fault that the system is the way that it is. You are not to blame. Please do not have any shame or guilt about the way things are or even the things that you're doing that you were trained to do. It is not your fault. It is not your fault. And you have the power to change just as much as you can. Don't put an expectation on yourself to do more than you can do. And don't let anyone else tell you that you should feel guilty for not being able to do more than you can do. Okay? Just do what you can do. Just do what you can do. Okay? You are not messed up. There is nothing wrong with you. How you feel is valid, and there are things that need to change. And every single time we stop allowing ourselves to be gaslit that it's something wrong with us, and we allow ourselves to just take the next little step we can take instead of thinking we have to have it all figured out, the more we change everything. Okay? Okay. I love you. You're perfect. You're valid. You're beautiful. You are enough. You are enough. You are enough. So what would be enough? And then let it be a journey. It's going to look totally different in 10 years than it looks now. You can't do it wrong. There's no one way it has to look. There's no right way. It's just what's the way for you. Okay? Okay. Mwah. You're the best. Give love. Give your excess. Support others. Support where you can. Love yourself. Support yourself. Go with that. Okay.